My main focus has always been how the central nervous system can regenerate or have plasticity in adulthood after injury and in aging. Currently, I'm working on spinal cord injury model. So that's a model I use in my lab a lot currently, although there are some other projects, going on, but that's the major one, and where we're looking at how we can repair the central nervous system after a spinal cord injury specifically. With COVID, it's a lot of time on the computer, a lot of Zoom meetings, but really, I like many PIs, I do a lot of writing and thinking and reading, which is a lot of fun. I really like it a lot. But also I have lots of meetings. I try to meet with my students. I really enjoy training students and having students in my group I now have high school students all the way to, residents and fellows in my lab, right? And at all different times. Media is really helpful in getting, information out to the masses, right? But if you're really interested in the field, you kind of have to dig a little bit deeper into the primary sources. So that's a very academic approach. I realize that, but even the news story sometimes is very much like there are tidbits of information, and sometimes it's like playing telephone. You make it into a snippet that is digestible, consumable, and then after a while, inadvertently, it becomes something else a little bit more different from the original message, right? And so neuroscience is the same way. Stem cell therapy isn't all about replacing your brain and making a whole new person, right? It's a lot of different things. So you kind of have to read a little bit deeper into it. Yeah, so I think it's interesting. You know, Definitely there are lots of when I was in grad school, the number of female to male students, it's still 50-50, right? But then if you look up the next level and the next level up, the postdocs and the professors, assistant professors, and full professors, as you go up and up into the sort of categories, promotions, whatever, higher levels, the numbers are very different than like the student population. It's the same if you look at political science major, right? It's 50% women. And then how many people are politicians? And just very recently we're celebrating lots of females in and people of color in the Congress, right? It's very recent. So the sort of um, I think we're just beginning to be aware of how difficult it is for women, for example, and people of color, And I think culturally, it's an evolving thing, right? And even to understand it, first you have to see like, oh, it has been a problem. And it wasn't always so clear and very well defined when I was growing up as a scientist, I would say. And then now it's much more like a question that people are thinking about and are aware. So that's really helpful. But just in general, women, in the workplace as a scientist, I sort of face the same sort of challenges that anyone would, trying to have a family work-life balance. If you're a male professor and you're about to give a presentation and then you plug in your computer and the first thing their background screen pops up right on the thing, and then he has a picture of his kids and like, oh, so cute, like such a nice dad, or pictures all over in his office of his kids. But then if a female professor does that, it's looked upon very differently. So intentionally I would not have a screensaver as my kids at all, but I didn't even think about that. Like it just sort of something that I did, just as a detail, right? So as a male, if you're, caring for your family, which you should be, that's like kudos, extra points for you. Whereas if it's a female, you're like, are you professional? Are you here? Like, what's going on, right? So I think the double standard is still there. We have a long way to go. I've been in elevators where my two male colleagues are chatting, and then the elevator doors open and I hear them, talking about something. And then I walk in and then say, "Hey, Dr. Kine, how's it going?" Or "Hi, Zen," and then they're like, "So how are your kids?" "My kids are fine." "So anything exciting going on in your work?" So I think it's really interesting. It's not overt, but it's kind of there, right? You still have to deal with, um, I'm here, I'm a scientist, and I'm a female. I'm all of the above. Not one is taking over the other. So I think it's a really a hard balance. And and as for trainees, it's really personal, right? So I really try to talk to my trainees openly and honestly about what is it to be expected. But then they can also be a part of the solution once they're in the field as well. So.